Welcome back to the Retire As You Desire show. There is so much misinformation about the Social Security Administration, and I want to set things straight today, so stick with us for this segment. Now, let's face it, the Social Security Administration, they've had their challenges. When this was implemented in the 30s, this was used to help people because we were going through a depression, then World War II. These systems were set up to help people throughout retirement age. Now, the average life expectancy was in your 60s in the 1930s. So things have obviously changed. We're in the 70s and 80s now, depending on if you're married or single. But when the Social Security Administration was founded, people didn't realize that our life expectancy was going to really drastically change. Now, as our population is aging and people are living longer, people have been paying into the scenario and into the Social Security Administration for a long time. So you would think that there's plenty of funding there. But I'm going to give you an overview of the situation regarding the Social Security Administration in today's dollars and their own funding status. Because over the years, unfortunately, government has sort of robbed Peter to pay Paul, however that scenario goes. There's been borrowing in the Social Security Administration, and that's been sort of the issue, is when you're borrowing money and you don't pay it back. Naturally that doesn't go well. That usually leads to a bankruptcy if you're an individual or a family. In this case, the government has different ways to fund these programs, especially Medicare, Medicaid, and the Social Security Administration. But let's get into some projections in 2024 dollars. The Social Security Trust Funds. These are benefits that are primarily funded through two trust funds, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance, OASI, and the Disability Insurance, DI Trust Fund. These funds, they collect payroll taxes from workers and employers, and it's about 15% in today's dollars. So if you are an employee, you're paying 7.5%, and your employer is paying the other 7.5%. And these revenues are used to pay benefits for people. This is where people receive their Social Security income. And you would think, well, in America, we have 330 million people who are living here, roughly. You would think that there's enough people working to help pay for these costs. But the current status is a little bit of a different story. Now, according to a 2023 annual report from the Social Security Administration, their Board of Trustees said that combined, the OASI and the DI trust funds, they are projected to be depleted by 2034. And you're thinking, wow, that's 10 years from now if you're watching in today's year. And this is true if no changes are made to the current system. Now, this number is drastically going to change because it's based on longevity, people living longer. If people do not live as long, there's going to be more funds available. It's all a math game. That's what this whole scenario is all about. It's a math game. And it's really going to come down to taxes. And I'm going to talk at the end of the segment about ways to help plan for hopefully better Social Security opportunities for you. And it's a great idea to stay tuned. But after 2034, you have to ask yourself if you're going to be receiving your benefits. What is Social Security going to do to still make sure that my benefits are there? But they think that the Social Security Administration could pay for about 80% of these benefits alone, just on a tax revenue standpoint. So you're thinking 80%, it's roughly projected. Is that going to reduce my benefit by 80%? The answer is no. But from a funding shortfall, the trustees project a 75-year actuarial deficit of 3.42%. Now, this is all about payroll. this means that to fully fund Social Security for the next 75 years, payroll taxes need to be increased by 3.42%. It's big. So we're talking getting closer to 20%. This is a big deal. Now, they also potentially project that the benefits would need to be reduced by a corresponding amount. So add 3, subtract 3. This is going to be a problem, especially for those who are really dependent on Social Security income. But there's a bunch of other factors that are going to contribute to this potential underfunding over the next 75 years. Here's a big one. It's a demographic change. We have to understand that the ratio of workers to beneficiaries is declining. As baby boomers retire, which are roughly 10,000 a day in this year, fewer workers are paying into the system. So as less people pay into the system, more people are using the system. So there's going to be a natural strain on these trust funds. Then also, with people living longer, it also has a huge impact on retirement income benefits. If we live 30 or 40 years into retirement, let's say you live to 100, you're going to be receiving income from the SSA for up to 30 years or more. It could be 38 to 30 years, depending on what age you choose to do it at. But there's also a lot of economic factors that play into this. And part of that is the inflation that we talked about in our prior segment. When we have cost of living adjustments, that COLA increases that strain because more money is going out the door based on inflation here in America. And there's also other economic factors that we want to consider. Wage growth, productivity, economic conditions that affect payroll tax revenues. All of these things need to be considered when we're thinking about future income for Social Security. And then also variations in birth rates also influence the size of the workforce in the future. So if certain generations are not having kids, it really changes the dynamic of the system. That could be huge problems in the future. But everything is not all doom and gloom. Let's talk about some potential solutions that the SSA has really considered over the past couple years. This is not a fun one. Raising the payroll tax rate. It's going to affect employers and employees. Less money will be in everyone's pockets to invest. Here's a sort of popular one. It's about adjusting your benefits. If we modify the current benefit formula, increasing the retirement age to maybe 70 or 75, this means that there could be some testing done to see if this could reduce the outflow of funds. I foresee this potentially happening for like my kids and for that generation because things will need to change into the future. And then here's a big one, the general revenue financing. This is where the government is thinking of using tax dollars to supplement the trust funds. So let's think about the government for a moment. There are over $30 trillion of untaxed 401k plan dollars that the government is potentially considering taxing to help offset the Social Security deficit. So if you have dollars in a pre-tax 401k plan or a pre-tax IRA, you know what the truth is? You don't own all of that money. So let's say if you saved $1 million and you think you're a millionaire because of that. We have to look at the tax brackets. If you're in the 22% tax bracket in retirement, we have to look at the $1 million, subtract out that 22% from a taxation standpoint, and net, that's the dollar amount that you actually have because you have a relationship with the government still. From an idea standpoint, and this is what I mentioned earlier, what we do with our clients is we look at potential Roth IRA conversions. And again, this is not a blanket recommendation for everyone, but work with your financial advisor, your retirement income certified professional to work through these scenarios. But what I love doing is looking at do we have opportunities, very important opportunities, to move money into a Roth IRA from your pre-tax dollars where you pay the taxes now, but if the government's going to be increasing taxes in the future, do you think it would be a bad idea for you to start looking into this now while tax rates are almost historically at their all-time lows? Because the all-time highs were in the 90% in the 1940s. So this is a really great planning opportunity for you to be strategic to see if you could start to move some of your pre-tax dollars into tax-free money into the future. Pay your tax bill now, have an opportunity to have tax-free money later, and that could also potentially give you more of a tax-free revenue stream from your Social Security benefits. These all go hand in hand with one another, but as an investor, which you are, that's why you're watching this show, you have to ask yourself, do you think the government is going to raise taxes in the future or keep them the same or lower them? If the Social Security Administration is underfunded and Medicare and Medicaid, the government is essentially going to need to find ways to cover these shortfalls. And in my opinion, I think it's going to come from taxation. So be progressive, get in front of this now, and we're here to help you through this process. Stay tuned to the Retire As You Desire show. We're going to wrap up this episode with the next segment that I think is going to blow your mind. It's going to be all about why you should be planning very strategically for your Social Security in retirement. Overall, if you claim your benefits before your full retirement age, everyone's income is affected. It will be reduced. That 8% increase is going to be a benefit for your spouse too, if your spouse outlives you.